Excellent. So bonjour tout le monde and hello again to everyone. It's fantastic to see so many familiar and new faces joining us for our CAAM quarterly town hall, our first of 2025. We're thrilled to be back together with our growing advanced air mobility ecosystem. And whether you've joined us from the beginning or this is your first town hall, welcome. So before we dive into today's content, we wanted to make sure we could set the tone and connect with each other today through a quick chat warm-up. So as we look ahead to the year of advanced air mobility and the future to come in operationalization, imagine a future where advanced air mobility is already a part of your everyday life. To get some of the connections flowing, feel free to drop into the chat one Canadian city or global destination where you believe AAM could make your travel faster, easier, or more sustainable. Let's get some of those ideas and energy flowing across the digital room. Excellent. Thank you, Rick. Always great to see you here. Joan, okay, I see as well. Great, solid pick on that one. Dale, appreciate the insight. Excellent. I appreciate the comments in the chat there as well. Wonderful. So let's begin. This town hall is going to be your go-to for Canada's latest on AAM operations, policies, and regulations. It's where we help coordinate, communicate, and collectively advance our ecosystem. And most relevant for the uncertain economic times and federal election environment we are in, let's dive in. So we respectfully acknowledge that today's digital gathering takes place on the unceded and traditional ancestral territories of many First Nations across Turtle Island, now known as Canada. In that spirit, we're proud to spotlight the powerful work of Kuteen Creations and the Bead Your Province project, an initiative that celebrates Indigenous identity, art, and place through beaded designs representing provinces and territories across Turtle Island. We encourage you to explore and support this vibrant expression of Indigenous culture and creativity throughout today's. Now, specifically for today, we're grateful that this CAAM Town Hall is powered by the support of Unither Bioélectronique. Not only has the Unither team been immense champions of AAM technology in Canada, but their recent push into hydrogen technology and partnerships with Robinson Helicopters are driving the development towards operationalization of AAM in Canada. Please make sure to reach out and discover more about Unither and their team's progress and how you can become involved and support their developments. Now, as we continue building the future-focused ecosystem, we want to make sure we can hear from you. If you have some of those compelling stories or experiences related to advanced air mobility, please reach out. We'd love to share your voice and continue growing this movement and momentum together. Looking to our definition of advanced air mobility, as the global conversation evolves, so does our approach. Our international partners and we at CAAM are aligning more closely with that evolving definition of advanced air mobility currently being shaped by ICAO. So what does AAM mean for us? At CAAM, advanced air mobility is that evolution of air transportation driven by an ecosystem that brings together new propulsion systems, including that electric and hydrogen-based technologies, new aircraft architectures with redesigns and optimized for various ranges, new operating missions, redefining how people, goods, and services move across both our urban and regional environments. And importantly, regardless of the definition, our goal remains clear: to make air mobility safer, more sustainable, and more accessible for our communities across Canada and around the world. Now, advanced air mobility examples in the evolving aviation ecosystem take a variety of different tangible forms. We wanted to focus on a couple of them to showcase where that umbrella covers under this growing AAM definition. We start with our remote piloted aircraft systems, or RPAS, as seen here in an example by Indra Robotics and their Wayfinder. This started flying in around 2016 and generating some of those commercial operating opportunities. We do have to do an announcement as well in this section to the great updated BVLOS regulations released from Transport Canada yesterday, advancing Canada en route to more opportunities for this RPAS sector, and that our team will be sharing in the chat to make sure our ecosystem has all of the updates as quick and efficiently as possible. Similarly, there's a growing marketplace in the retrofitting of existing aircraft, as seen in Harbour Air's electric eBeaver program that started flying in 2019. Building upon that as well, we look to the progress in our aviation training sector for our future pilots. Here's an example of Sealand Flight's Pipistrel Velas Electro that had its first commercial flight in Campbell River in June of 2024. And all these pieces allow us to look to that expanding eVTOL market, or the electric vertical takeoff and landing one, showcased here by the Beta ALIA 250, that is on that pathway to being certified by the FAA in the United States around that 2028 timeframe that's working through. And this doesn't downplay any of the developments coming out of the autonomous aircraft, seen here with the Whisk Gen 6 program, and looking at some of those longer timeframes for the autonomous eVTOL in that 2030 plus aspect. This all gives us the development into what we're looking for the future of aviation as well, as we try and unlock the opportunities in commercial aviation space and some of those new energy systems like hydrogen, as shown by Airbus taking a lead with their Zero E program. These projected timeframes, of course, will lead us beyond that 2035 plus timeframe, but still are important in the overall evolving aviation ecosystem. The important piece we wanted to focus on, though, is no singular aircraft will serve all missions in Canada, nor all operating use cases. And it's our goal as an organization to make sure we support the various aircraft, various operations, and various times to entry to service so that the Canadian ecosystem is prepared for opportunities wherever they may be presented. Stepping back from some of the operating pieces, we have to acknowledge the importance of the existing Canadian aerospace ecosystem that we have across our country. Our role at CAAM is to ensure that each one of our partners at these organizations understands their role and their members' role in helping unlock the future of advanced air mobility operations in our country. It is that unique fabric that brings us together from the regional, federal, and international level that gives Canada that integrated ecosystem to help unlock this new industry. More specifically for us at CAAM, we structure our ecosystem that is led by our national board and advised from our advisory committee to showcase some of the developments of our golden stars across the country. And we build out our membership from our leaders at our project partners, our engaged members, and of course, our general ecosystem to ensure that movement and different levels of intent is advocated across the CAAM ecosystem that we have here in Canada and abroad. Now, bringing it up to a higher level on our federal side, CAAM is privileged to help drive the coordination between Transport Canada, NAV Canada, and the broader AAM industry through the National AAM Integration Team. Our role in this space is to convene and unify the voices from across Canada and beyond, bringing that industry opportunities, concerns, and challenges directly to our regulatory authorities. By working alongside our national board and the advisory committee, we ensure that industry's input actively shapes Canada's pathway to operations and our national AAM strategy for the country. But more relevant now than ever, let's talk about some of this federal engagement. Importantly, how your voice as CAAM members gets to Ottawa. So at the conclusion of our federal election in April time in Canada, we will be needing your voice now more than ever, and we need it heard by our decision makers. Being a CAAM member gives you a direct line to help shape that national conversation around advanced air mobility. You'll be a part of the voices that inform not just industry, but also on our government as well. Through CAAM membership, your insights feed into our quarterly federal engagement letter, which captures some of those latest opportunities and challenges facing the advanced air mobility sector. And critically, it's then shared with our federal leaders and departments, helping shape the future of this space. So these quarterly letters are sent to the Minister of Transport Canada's office, the Ministry of ISED office, and with the Advanced Air Mobility Integration Team at Transport and NAV Canada. So if you haven't already, please fill out our CAAM membership form so that your thoughts will go directly into our next letter to welcome our federal cabinet and government and to give them a brief on the Advanced Air Mobility file. CAAM membership isn't just a badge. This is your outlet to help influence how AAM takes off in Canada. And now it would be remiss without transitioning to talk about one of the most critical and increasingly urgent barriers to our success here in Canada, tariffs. As we look beyond operations and into the broader AAM value chain, it's clear that flying the aircraft is just one small part of the equation. For Canada to truly lead in this global industry, we must ensure access to the full AAM value chain. And right now, tariffs are restricting and creating roadblocks in some key areas that we want to focus on. Beginning with critical minerals. The raw materials needed for electric aircraft systems could be taxed at import, making it harder for Canadian firms to compete globally. On the manufacturing side, key AAM components, tooling, and technologies are facing potential tariff penalties that will slow down innovation and increase those costs for Canadian OEMs and suppliers. From the supply chain side, without tariff relief on the horizon, securing and scaling our AAM supply chain becomes even more complex and expensive, impacting timelines and scalability. And then as we know on the pilot training side, even our pilot training programs are feeling the pinch, with the potential of the imported simulators and certification tools being delayed or made more costly. Now we know these aren't future problems. They are happening now. And they're stalling Canada's momentum in a sector where speed, scale, and access are critical. Now, while there are real challenges to address, Canada also stands at a powerful point of opportunity within the global AAM value chain. This chart here from McKinsey shows how the future of value of AAM isn't just concentrated in operations. It's actually distributed across the entire ecosystem, from manufacturing and infrastructure to training, asset financing, and software development. And this is where Canada shines. Canada's existing aerospace strengths, our deep bench of talent, tech, and infrastructure give us a head start in several of the most valuable segments, such as hardware and software, asset provisioning, manufacturing and infrastructure, and of course, as mentioned, the pilot training aspect. So while tariffs and regulatory frictions can stall this progress, this slide reminds us of what's at stake and what's possible if we align the right policies, partnerships, and momentum together. We know the opportunity is here, the foundation is already laid, and now it's about harnessing and unlocking it for our AAM future in Canada. Now, for changing gears to more of a celebratory note, we wanted to focus on a major highlight from earlier this year, our CAAM-led Canadian delegation to California. In partnership with Global Affairs Canada, we had the incredible opportunity to bring together a cross-section of Canadian innovators and stakeholders to visit some of the world's leading AAM pioneers, Wisk, Joby, and Archer, as well as engage with our friends at NASA's Ames Research Center. This was more than just a tour, though. It was about relationship building, that international collaboration, and showcasing Canada's readiness to contribute meaningfully to the global AAM ecosystem. We captured some of the energy and momentum from that visit, and we pulled together a quick mashup video to give you a taste of that experience. So let's roll the clip. So building upon that and looking ahead to both this calendar year and 2026, we're also excited to announce 3 strategic international trade delegations led by CAAM that will position Canadian leadership on that global stage on our next plans going forward. These trips are similar design to open doors to investment, that collaboration and innovation by connecting our Canadian ecosystem with key global markets and opportunities with partners. So here's what we have planned. We're looking at doing a Beta Technologies visit down to their headquarters in Burlington, Vermont, which is going to be that exclusive opportunity to connect directly with Beta and explore their zero-emission aircraft development and operationalization strategy. Secondarily, we're looking at doing a pre-Dubai Air Show investor showcase between the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And this will be convening a select group of Canadian companies for those high-impact investor and government showcase opportunities across the 3 major Middle Eastern innovation hubs. And our third one is the ICAO Advanced Air Mobility Symposium, scheduled to be hosted in 2026. We will be returning to this global forum and showcasing Canadian advancements and deepening our international regulatory and industry partnerships. So please make sure you're on the mailing list so that you don't miss out on the upcoming expressions of interest announcements that will go out for each of these delegations. And as always, our priority access will be given to our CAAM members to make sure we take advantage of this. Let's make sure we bring our Canadian AAM excellence to the world for them to see. So as we wrap up our first part of the session today, before our speakers come on, we know that this road to operationalization won't be easy. Significant challenges still lie ahead, and they'll require resilience, adaptability, and that clear focus on scaling from entry to service to full commercial operations, all while meeting evolving regulatory standards and market expectations. The urgency to chart this path has never been clearer. That's why CAAM is here and committed to building our robust, coordinated Canadian AAM ecosystem, one that's actively progressing towards that safe and scalable operations of this technology. So as we invite, let us be your trusted partner in navigating the complexities of Canada's AAM journey for now on route to operations of the future. And we'll have the Director of RTM, Alan Chapman, join us. And Alan's going to give us some of the quarterly insights on our national airspace developments. So Alan, thank you again for being here, showcasing some of the opportunities, and the platform is yours to share some of the updates from NAV Canada side.
Great, thank you. Thank you, JR. Really appreciate that. Just let me get my screen back into shape here. Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, JR. Thanks to the CAAM team for once again putting this in. Start by sharing a little bit around just how we are looking at RTM and how we're looking at AAM right now from NAV Canada perspective. It's a bit of a recap on some of the key topics. So I'll walk through this relatively quickly, and as I do so, tell you where we are and what we're focusing on right now as a quarterly perspective. So I'm going to start with just, what's my team here in NAV Canada to do? It's really to facilitate the safe integration of RPAS. More than that, we're looking at AAM, UAM now as well as we move forward, and trying to make sure that we keep our core principles in place for fair and equitable access to airspace, and manage that safe integration of these new forms of aviation that we're all talking about. So how do we look at this? How do we think about this? When we think about our traditional ATM operation, it's being challenged by many of these new entrants coming in, whether it's equipage, technology, the scale that we expect this to occur at in the future, degrees of automation. All these things are challenging to our existing sort of ATM system and the service we provide. So we kind of split that really, first of all, into 2 things, like where do we have pilot on board? All our existing systems, are focused on developing that area, and then where are we seeing the opportunities for remotely piloted? So that's kind of a key dimension to us. And you can put the things that we know and kind of love in there today, traditional aviation compared to something like an IFR integrated RPAS, flying high level. If you take away those dimensions, let's put another dimension in there, which is how automated is the response and is the service that's being provided for those 2 or for these areas. And where is the human in the loop, and where is the human on the loop as we move forward? And again, let's kind of go back and think about the strategies that NAV Canada's got in play today. Our key strategic goals are focused largely on the traditional ATM business, so trajectory-based optimization, really important for large carriers, and very supportive of those efforts to put flight plans in place that they can follow and maximize their efficiency and productivity as well. That ties closely to airspace modernization. Of course, airspace modernization, as we look at it generally, covers not just our existing ATM, but also where we're going to go in the future with some of those new opportunities. And then in the center of that, that's our digital aerodrome air traffic services, so where we're digitizing those areas as well. So there are key initiatives that NAV Canada is underway with. And then we add to that the RPAS Traffic Management, really in this bottom corner where we look at remotely piloted and a high degree of automated flight. So then let's recap where things fit on that grid today. So traditional aviation, IFR, integrated RPAS in that being served by that ATM system, and then smaller low-level RPAS, the sort of below 1,000 feet, RPAS being served by RFIMs and in that bottom corner. And then we get to the UAM, right? And how does UAM and the eVTOL space fit into this? And we believe UAM first will start, as served by our traditional ATM systems, and they'll be piloted. And as we look to the future, that's kind of where we expect and what we're working towards today. But all of those manufacturers, all of those OEMs want to move into that remotely piloted, highly automated space as well. And we don't know what path we'll take to get there. Whether we'll take the pilot out first, or whether we'll look to automate more of the systems side with the pilot still on board. So it's a really interesting path, really interesting journey. And NAV Canada's constantly monitoring and working closely with the likes of CAAM and other associations to make sure we understand, what's going to evolve through this process, and what's the timing like. And I'll come back to that point in a little bit. So if we take a step back from that and just think about where NAV Canada in this area in AAM and RPAS is focused right now, urban air mobility, we've put a provisional strategy together that we're looking at and to understand how we need to respond to this space, how we support and act as an enabler to the work that's going on. Then on the RPAS side, I'll talk a little bit about where we are today with NAV Drone and the things that we're doing with NAV Drone, particularly for the new regulations. I'll talk about where we go bigger picture, longer term, and we'll share a new video with you all around that new service that we're implementing. I won't touch particularly today on the IFR integrated RPAS, only to say that we're doing work with D&D, we're doing work with Transport Canada to ensure that we can kind of manage RPAS within the traditional aviation model, and we can get those flights occurring. That will be a benefit to the commercial sectors as well when we get there, but we've got work to do to make sure that all works successfully, both sort of en route flight, but also ultimately when they're able to take off and land from civilian aerodromes and airports as well. And the final piece, which we again have a lot of close focus on, is managing the disruption risk. So when there are, particularly around airports, busy airports, when there are drones that shouldn't be there, how do we respond with the airport authorities, with the police forces, etc., and all the different stakeholders that come into that. So that's kind of the areas of focus that we look at, and I'll update you on some of these today. But I'll also just point out one of those lines across the bottom, which is the market assessment. All of this work and where we go, particularly with, say, RTM Phase 2 and the new services, is dependent on us understanding how fast this market's going to grow, how many use cases are going to be implemented, and what that commercial model will look like in the future. So we've asked the third-party consulting organisation to come in and really look at a market assessment and help us understand and help the other stakeholders understand how fast this market's going to grow. Again, thanks to CAAM for being a great partner in this space and helping us looking at giving us feedback on the early use cases that model is going to look at, CAAM have been there along with some of the other associations as well, and other groups helping us figure out some of those core elements as that consulting organisation now moves into its next stages of really building the model out, pulling the data that they can from Canada and looking at how this is going to evolve. So I'm really excited for us to have that and have that opportunity to see what we believe to be the path that we're on. It'll be interesting to get feedback on that as we move forward. So let's just recap urban air mobility just very briefly. We are, in the short term, our intent is to deliver service as we do today. We're watching closely all of the advances that are happening in this space, the certification programs that are happening, say, in the US with the FAA, the work that the FAA from an ATO, air traffic operation perspective, is doing to prepare for these and kind of following suit. So in the short term, we believe there is parity with helicopters and the way that they will operate. There will be some procedural differences for sure, things that we need to think about that are different with this sector, particularly when it comes to eVTOLs and electric aircraft, and some of the differences in the way we'll handle them. But in large part, we believe that in the short term, we've got the procedures and the systems in order to be able to deal with that and the service to deal with that. Medium term, as it scales up, we need to think about how we deal with that scaling up, either from a workload perspective or from the airspace design perspective. All those elements will come into that. We also expect to see in that medium term trials with remote pilots, of these aircraft. And again, there's a lot of interest in moving that forward. And obviously longer term, where everybody wants to go again, is take the pilot out, make the pilot remote, have a ratio of pilot to, automated and autonomous systems in the future. So very interesting space to be monitoring, and again, working closely with our partners to understand how UAM will move forward. Coming back to RPAS and RPAS Traffic Management. So again, thinking about flights that occur at low level. Phase 1 is in place. I'm not going to go through all of the details on this side, but it's successfully in place. The one thing we have done probably over the last 6 months to a year is some updates to NAV Drone, which have changed some of the grid designs to really improve the user experience of flying in those areas, to really increase where we can the number of automated operations that can occur in those areas. That helps us because it reduces workload on our ATS units. And makes it more straightforward for our users to operate. So the NAV Drone team have done some great work in sort of looking at those airspace designs and figuring out how can we safely either change the design or extend some of the altitude thresholds to work in that space. We're seeing continual growth as well. If I look back at 2024, there was about 26% growth in the number of permission requests. So we're seeing significant growth just even in the core business today. JR mentioned at the start, really happy to see the new regulations coming out from TC. We know that will create some new use cases, certainly in November when they come fully into effect, but also some of the things that are going to be closer to that as well. We intend to put a release of NAV Drone out to support the immediate changes and to set up for November. We'll be doing that in the next couple of months. And then we'll have another release in the fall to recognize the new changes, particularly the VLOS operational changes, the low-risk BVLOS on the website to assist with planning and understand some new mapping and things that can support low-risk BVLOS. So that's our intent with NAV Drone right now. The team are hard at work, scanning through the regulations to see what's actually been released. Like everybody, we wait to see the final CG2 release to fully understand that. So the team are going through that, looking at the work we've done based on the insights we had and the conversations we'd had previously to make sure that release is going to be suitable. And fingers crossed, we're pretty close. That will be out in a couple of months as we look at that. So that's where NAV Drone is today. That's our sort of phase 1 service that looks after VLOS and BVLOS. And the question we're always asked is, how does Canada support BVLOS in medium and more complex airspace, in controlled airspace? And that's where we get to our phase 2 initiatives and the architecture that we're putting in place. So to illustrate that, I'm going to share a quick video. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, so I think I've got to press a button. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share this. Okay.
Drones are here, and they have a big role to play in the future of our society and economy. As Canada's air navigation service provider, NAV Canada is making sure that remotely piloted aircraft systems, also called RPAS or drones, can safely integrate into our country's airspace. Drone operators across the country are already using NAV Drone, our fully digitized system to plan and for controlled airspace, obtain permission for low-risk, low-altitude drone flights. Our next step is to enable flights for more types of operations in different classes of airspace, as they are supported by Transport Canada. This will unlock exciting and important drone uses, like the delivery of consumer goods, longer-range inspections and land surveys, and the rapid transport of life-saving transplant organs and medical supplies. To enable these more complex operations, NAV Canada is developing drone traffic management services to monitor operations and ensure safe integration with the Canadian aviation ecosystem. Drone operators will interact with RPAS Traffic Management Service Providers, or RSPs, who will be able to help with flight planning, emergency conditions reporting, and more. RSPs will also act as a liaison between operators and the new RPAS Flight Information Management System, or RFIMS, to provide important centralized services to drone operators while enabling the easy exchange of information between parties to ensure safe operations. Together with RPAS flight information submitted by RSPs, RFIMS will also draw on data from other sources like Transport Canada, Natural Resources Canada, and NAV Canada Systems and Services to provide a range of important functions. Pre-flight functions include airspace and capacity management, flight plan validation and approvals to operate in controlled airspace, and synchronization with other operations in the area. Once in flight, RFIMS will offer additional functions to operations in controlled airspace, like positioning and tracking, monitoring conformance to the approved flight path, and conflict detection and resolution. In controlled airspace, the system will integrate existing tools for tracking traditional aircraft with remote identification to track drones, maintaining and sharing a holistic, real-time view of aircraft operations. Like everything NAV Canada does, safety is the primary concern of RPAS Traffic Management. So quality and reliability are central to the design and development of the system from the outset. We will be consulting with stakeholders and working with suppliers over the coming months and years to implement the system. We're excited to share more information along the way. Visit navcanada.ca to read our Concept of Operations document and learn more about how RPAS Traffic Management will help keep Canada's skies safe.
So that's the first time that video has been shown. So I'd if anybody has any feedback on that, love to see that. But hopefully that gives you a sense of the kind of vision that we have that we put out there in the ConOps back in, I think it's 23, the end of 23. We're kind of building on that vision, and you think about all these pieces coming together. We've got the architecture, the way we're looking at this from an RFIMS perspective. And also the need to understand the market, the speed the market's going to go at, how big is this market going to be? So we can work with all of you, work with the associations, work with Transport Canada to make sure we've got the services that are required and that there's a sustainable business model, that sits behind all of this and makes sense as we move forward. And there's obviously big questions around that for us all, just like how do we make sense of all this and have those commercial models in RPAS to serve the industry. This is what we're focused on for phase two. This highly automated system, at the core of it, some changes to the airspace to enable that to happen, or some additional volumes being created within the airspace to enable this. And that really important integration with our ATM systems, with our existing data, to give that full operating picture that we require. And finally, while NAV Canada has the mandate for provision of all service in Canada, we also, like the rest of the globe, want to open that up to enable service providers to be able to interface directly and be able to add value to those core safety services that we offer to the rest of the Canadian operators and pilots out there. So that's the path we're on. That's where we're heading to right now. And just to finish off with some of those things, there's a CONOPS that's out there for phase two. There are trials. They're not funded trials, but they are trials by industry who really care and want to move this forward. And my thanks to all of the people who are involved in those trials, because it makes a huge difference when we can see these things, occurring in real life. So we're monitoring those trials and looking forward to getting them underway this year. Stakeholders are aligned on this vision so far. That concept of operations isn't a NAV Canada document; it's a NAV Canada Transport Canada document. So, this is the direction that we've aligned on. Around RTM as we move forward. And finally, to say, we are in the process of software selection. So we are looking at, a number of vendors have submitted proposals for us, and the teams are working through those right now. So this is on a path. This is moving forward, as part of our journey for developing and delivering these services in Canada. Final thing I'd say, you'll notice on the first slide, there's a conference that's happening. It's an important conference for all of aviation, particularly ANSPs like NAV Canada globally, but it's much broader than that. It's happening in Portugal this year. It's a conference that's growing. I think it's about 25% bigger than it was last year. And it's a great opportunity. One of the things that we have to do in Canada is make sure we learn from the rest of the world. We understand what's happening in other countries and other states, so we can kind of reflect that. We also have a great story to tell. The way that Canada's moving forward, the work that all the associations are doing, CAAM, industry, everybody is kind of progressing this. The new low-risk BVLOS regulations that TC released yesterday, I think, are a real step forward, not just for Canada, but for globally as well. So, I think Canada's got a great story to tell here, and we can share that learning and kind of get more back. So it's a great opportunity for us to meet with vendors, to meet with our peers, and if you have interest in understanding what's going on in this space, great conference to attend as well, I would say. JR, I think that's it from me.
Powerful, Alan. And let's just pause and acknowledge all of the great work for getting us to this stage in telling Canada's story there. And I just wanted to spend a couple of moments to just put additional emphasis. Can you share the importance of what it means for Canada to be present at that CANSO event in Portugal to tell our narrative? What does it mean for the world to see what's going on in Canada?
I think it's really important, and it's important in the space that we're in here with new entrants. I mentioned earlier things like DATS as well, and the work we're doing with other digital transformation. There's a huge amount that Canada should be very proud of, and one of the things that we have to do as well in telling our story is making sure that all of the infrastructure, the systems that are being built, the standards that are being written, all allow for the work that Canada's doing, and that we're actually at the forefront of all that activity. So if we're not part of those conversations, we miss the boat in many ways. Things that are going to evolve and move forward without us actually helping shape them in a way that we have so much value. And I'll second Phil's earlier comment. I too do not have a Canadian accent. You may have noticed that. I too choose to live in Canada. I love this country. I think it's an amazing country, and I think we can speak much more highly and much more with much more volume about the things that make Canada great, the capacity, the capability that we have in Canada to drive these initiatives forward. So I would say it's really important for us to be taking the stage on these forums, to be supporting them, and to be help guiding and leading where all this work goes as we move forward.
And CANSO continues to be that important partner, both, harmonizing on the international side so that we can play in on the Canadian aspect as well. Last one before we wrap up here, Alan. We know, and this is coming from Kate Klassen from Indro's side, we know that the important release of any additional of the weather products are going to help support these low-level ops, low-risk routine. Can you give some insight? Is this going to be a part of the RFIMS? Is this going to be an additional NAV Canada product? Or is there opportunities in the future for more technology and providers to come in?
It's a great question. It really is, and it's still an open question. We will definitely provide some weather services around RFIMS. A lot of that will be the weather that we provide traditionally. There is definitely a gap that needs filling with some more micro weather for a lot of the operations. I think there's an opportunity here for industry. We've got the concept within the model of additional data providers or supplementary data providers. Whenever I use the term with people who are very focused on weather and I use the word supplementary, they correct me and say, there's nothing supplementary about weather. This is the most critical data in many ways for these flights. So I think the doors and the gates are kind of open right now as we evolve the architecture, as we evolve the conversations. It'd be really interesting to hear the views of industry and how they would like it to be incorporated, what they would like, and then what industry would like to provide in the space as well. I think there's some really interesting work going on in the world of weather right now, and some of the new standards that are being laid down and different approaches that are being taken. So we're excited to kind of look at that as well and just understand the bigger picture and how we support some of those views.
Yeah, wonderful. And then just last one here, just coming in from Marilyn Pearson. So she was mentioning that the U.S., will there be an impact of the U.S. defunding the National Weather Service and our access to that data or information on the Canadian side?
I am not the right person to answer that question, but I will absolutely take that question away and find out. I could hazard a guess, stroke opinion, but I won't. I'll say, let me take that away and get you a factual answer rather than Alan's view on that.
All right, so Marilyn, we'll have to follow up on that one, but good insight on just those impacts as well, and critically, some of the challenges that we're going to have ahead of as well, Alan. So on behalf of all of us, Alan, thank you again for taking time to give us the updates and showcase Canada's moving forward. We look forward to continue to provide this space for NAV and TC on the great work that's going on in our country and how that's signing on the global stage. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
So if you've been thinking throughout today's session, how do I get more involved? How do I help shape the future of AAM in Canada? The answer is simple. Join CAAM. Becoming that member connects you directly to the heart of Canada's AAM industry, where it's that innovation, policy, and path to operationalization actively taking shape. Whether you're just a startup, a major OEM, a utility company, or an airport, there is a place and a voice for you here. So membership at CAAM isn't just symbolic, it's that strategic choice. Within that CAAM membership, you're going to gain access to those priority reservations for funding at our global trade delegations, that participative voice in sharing and shaping Canada's policy and regulatory environment, as well as our facilitated networking into that national and international ecosystem of AAM collaborators. This isn't just about waiting on the sidelines anymore. It's about being at the table and having your voice help shape what comes next. So for us, that's just some of the highlights that are part of the CAAM ecosystem, but there are even more member benefits waiting, and you can take a look for some of the different funding access, insights, exposure, or influence coming from the CAAM membership from the QR code that's available on the screen here, or what our CAAM team will post in the chat soon. So if you want to shape the future of flight in Canada, this is going to be the start to your gateway to that pathway. As we wrap up today's session, I want to leave you with one clear next step, and that is simply get involved. If today's inspired you at all, if you want to help shape Canada's advanced air mobility future, then this is your moment. First, join CAAM. Membership gives you that voice at the national discussions. Second, stay connected. Our town halls are your streamlined source for industry updates, regulatory insights, and the success stories from across our ecosystem. And you can use this QR code on here to make sure that you're getting updates for our next quarterly CAAM Town Hall, which will be on June 26th of 2025. So thank you everybody who joined us here today. Whether you're a long-term member, a new partner, or just exploring the AAM space, you are now a part of the future of flight in Canada. Let's keep our conversations going. Follow us on social, visit us at CanadianAAM.com, or feel free to drop us a line directly at info@CanadianAAM.com. And on behalf of our entire CAAM team present today, David, Theo, and myself, thank you to our speakers. Thank you for being a part of the solution. And until next time, onward and upward together. Take care.